welcome to this deep dive. You're tuning in today because, well, you're likely focused on showing your English language skills. And a key part of that for many is the IELTS speaking test.
Absolutely. And it's understandable why you'd want to approach this, efficiently. Our goal today is really to get under the skin of what effective communication looks like in this specific test.
Right.
We're not just ticking boxes, we're aiming for a real understanding of what examiners are actually listening for.
Exactly. We've got some really valuable material here that sheds light on how to tackle the IELTS speaking test with both confidence and, well, clarity. We're going to explore practical language you can use, some common mistakes that can sort of hold you back, and really actionable strategies to, boost your performance.
Think of it as giving you a bit of an insider's view, maybe.
Yeah, helping you feel more prepared and kind of in tune with what the examiners are truly trying to assess.
What's fascinating, I think, when you look at preparing for this test is realizing it's less about striving for some, unattainable ideal of perfect English.
Right.
And much more about your ability to communicate your ideas clearly and crucially in a way that feels natural.
That's a great point. Our source actually shares the experience of someone named Mina, who apparently used to find the speaking test incredibly intimidating.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, she'd get flustered, her thoughts would just disappear, and her responses felt, really brief and not very well developed.
Mina's experience, I think that'll sound familiar to a lot of people listening. That pressure in the moment can be pretty intense, can't it?
Definitely.
But the crucial part of her story is how she decided to actively address those challenges.
Right. She started a very focused practice routine. Apparently, she practiced in front of a mirror using actual IELTS practice questions.
Good idea.
She even timed herself.
Yeah.
And this might feel a bit daunting for some. She recorded her own voice.
Ah, the self-recording step. It offers such valuable insight, doesn't it?
It must do.
It lets you step outside yourself and sort of hear what an examiner would hear. Mina's initial takeaway from doing this was apparently that she had a lot of hesitations, and she relied really heavily on very basic vocabulary words that lacked impact, like good and nice.
Which makes sense when you're feeling the pressure of a test situation, I suppose. But what she did next was really smart.
How was that?
She started keeping a notebook of stronger, more descriptive ways to express herself. Things like, I strongly believe, and it presents quite a challenge.
The active effort to expand her vocabulary, that's so effective.
Yeah.
It helps you move beyond those sort of default words that don't really convey the nuance you might be aiming for.
Right.
And her practice wasn't just her talking to herself. She also connected with a language partner every weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to discuss a variety of topics, things like culture, travel, education, you name it.
That conversational practice seems so key, doesn't it?
I think so.
It really simulates the back and forth of the actual test and helps you develop that ability to, well, think on your feet. The source emphasizes that Mina gradually learned to make her answers more substantial by weaving in personal stories and relevant examples.
And this is where your communication truly comes alive, I think. It becomes more engaging for the listener, or in this case, the examiner.
Right.
They're not solely focused on your grammar and vocabulary. I mean, those are important. But they're also interested in your capacity to develop your thoughts and connect them to your own experiences.
So what happened on test day for her?
Well, on the day of her test, Mina apparently made a conscious effort to smile, take a breath, and try to approach it as more of a genuine interaction.
That's such powerful advice. Just reframing the experience like that can instantly help ease anxiety, I imagine.
It really can. The outcome for Mina was a band 7.5.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. And her main takeaway was that it wasn't about achieving some impossible standard of perfection, but more about cultivating confidence and speaking more naturally.
Precisely. Mina's journey really highlights the core message here. The IELTS speaking test rewards your effort, your ability to speak fluently, and the clarity of your thinking.
Definitely. Now, our source goes on to break down some very practical tools that can help you achieve that clarity and fluency.
Okay, let's dive into those practical tools. The first area focuses on is phrasal verbs, which are, incredibly useful for sounding natural in spoken English.
They really are.
The first one highlighted is speak up.
Yes, speak up. It simply means to talk louder or perhaps more confidently so that others can hear you clearly.
Simple enough.
Yeah, the example given in our material is, the examiner told me to speak up because my voice was too low. It's a very direct and practical piece of advice, especially in the test setting itself. You need to make sure the examiner can hear you easily.
Makes sense. Then we have the phrasal verb think over.
Think over. This means to consider something carefully, thoroughly, before you give an answer. The example provided is, I always think over the question before I respond. This really underscores the value of taking just a brief pause to gather your thoughts and formulate your response, rather than feeling rushed to answer immediately.
That's good advice. Don't feel pressured to jump right in.
Exactly. The next useful phrasal verb is open up.
Open up. How does that apply here?
Well, open up in this context refers to sharing your thoughts or feelings more honestly and expressively.
Ah, I see.
The example, it took practice for me to open up during the test, indicates that being willing to express yourself more personally is actually a skill that can be developed through practice.
Okay.
Our source specifically mentions that in part 2 of the test, you kind of need to open up and show your personality a bit.
Right. That makes sense for the longer term.
Hmm.
And the final phrasal verb in this section is come across as.
Yes, come across as. This means to give a particular impression or seem to be a certain way to other people. For example, I tried to come across as confident and relaxed. This is an important aspect because how you present yourself can influence the examiner's overall impression.
So perception matters.
It does. Mina, in her story, consciously aimed to come across as natural even when she was feeling, quite nervous inside.
That's all really helpful language to have in your speaking toolkit. The next part of our source looks at collocations, word pairings that are particularly relevant for the IELTS speaking test.
Right.
The first one is fluent speaker.
Yes, fluent speaker. It's a common term, of course, and our source reminds us that even if you make occasional grammar mistakes, sounding like a fluent speaker contributes positively.
So it's about the flow.
Exactly. It's about the overall flow, the rhythm, and the ease of your speech, more than just isolated accuracy.
Okay. We also had the collocation speaking performance.
Speaking performance. This just refers to how well you speak in a particular situation, like the test. The source mentions, I recorded my speaking performance to analyze my mistakes, directly linking back to Mina's proactive approach.
Ah, yes.
Your speaking performance is essentially what is being evaluated across the different assessment criteria, fluency, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation.
Got it. Another key collocation highlighted is natural conversation.
This is so crucial, I think. The examiner isn't looking for a perfectly memorized speech. They want to experience a natural conversation with you as much as possible within the test format. Practicing in a conversational style, our source notes, can significantly reduce anxiety on test day. It's about engaging authentically with the examiner.
And the last collocation in this section is personal opinion.
Yes. Being able to express your personal opinion clearly and confidently is particularly important, especially in part 3 of the test, where the discussion becomes more abstract.
Right, the discussion part.
Exactly. The source advises you to always try to give your personal opinion, as it demonstrates your ability to think critically and express your own viewpoint. Don't just say what you think the examiner wants to hear.
These collocations really give you a clearer picture of what the examiners are actively listening for during the test, don't they?
They do. They frame the expectations.
Okay, now let's move on to some common mistakes to avoid, because understanding what not to do can be just as beneficial as knowing what to do.
Absolutely. Sometimes more so. Our source points out a few grammatical errors that are apparently quite common among test takers.
Okay.
Firstly, instead of saying, I'm not talkative person, the grammatically correct way is, I'm not a talkative person.
Ah, the missing article.
Exactly. That seemingly small missing article A is actually a frequent error.
Good to know.
What else? Another common slip-up involves word order. Instead of saying something like, I like very much speaking English, the correct structure is, I like speaking English very much.
Right, the adverb placement.
Mm-hmm. Adverbs like very much usually go after the object or at the end of the clause.
Okay, and the last one?
And finally, the phrase, in my opinion, is that. It's slightly redundant.
How so?
It should be corrected to either, my opinion is that, or just simply, in my opinion, followed by your point. Conciseness and grammatical accuracy are key here.
Right, so in my opinion, or my opinion is that.
Got it.
These might seem like minor corrections, but making these small adjustments can really enhance the clarity of your spoken English.
They really can add up to create a better overall impression.
Okay. The next section of our source provides some very practical strategies for achieving that clear communication during the test. The first is focusing on how to start your ideas smoothly and naturally.
Yes, this is important for fluency. The source gives some excellent starter phrases like, I'd say that, personally, I believe, and one reason is that.
Useful phrases.
These phrases help you ease into your response in a more fluid way rather than, abruptly starting your answer. They also give you just a brief moment to organize your thoughts.
Like a little launching pad.
Exactly. Then, the source emphasizes the importance of not just stating your opinions, but also supporting them by adding explanations and relevant examples.
Right. Don't just give a one-sentence answer.
Precisely. Simply giving a brief answer often isn't enough to demonstrate your full speaking ability, especially in Part 3. You need to elaborate and provide context.
So how do you do that smoothly?
The source suggests using phrases like, for example, when I was a child, or to be more specific, I usually, and that's mainly because.
Oh, okay. Signposting your examples and reasons.
Exactly. These kinds of phrases help you to flesh out your ideas and make them more relatable and understandable for the examiner.
And finally, in this section on clear communication, the advice is to strive to stay natural and confident throughout the test. This includes utilizing phrases that can give you a little bit of thinking time without sounding unnatural, like, let me think for a second.
Oh, that's a good one.
Or, that's an interesting question, and maybe I haven't thought about that much before, but...
Yeah. Yes. These types of phrases signal to the examiner that you are actively engaging with the question, even if you need a brief moment to formulate your response.
Right.
They sound much more natural and less jarring than simply having a long, awkward silence.
Definitely preferable to silence.
Yeah.
Okay. The final content area that our source delves into is stress control, specifically within the context of the IELTS speaking test.
The big one.
This is something that many test takers find challenging, so having practical strategies here is incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. Stress can really impact performance. The source offers some very actionable tips for managing it.
Like what?
Firstly, it suggests making a conscious effort to smile.
Really? Smile.
Yeah, and to try to approach the test interaction as much like a real conversation as possible. This simple shift in mindset can instantly make you feel more at ease and appear more approachable.
Interesting. What else?
It also strongly advises against memorizing answers beforehand.
We touched on that earlier.
Right, emphasizing that this often comes across as robotic and unnatural in a real conversation. Examiners are generally quite skilled at recognizing when a response is just being recited.
So authenticity is key.
Very much so. Incorporating natural hand gestures and utilizing open body language can also contribute to feeling more relaxed and engaged during the test.
Okay, using your body language naturally.
Yeah, it helps bring a sense of authenticity to your communication.
Another really practical tip for managing nervousness in the moment is to practice taking deep breaths. Simple, but effective, I guess.
It really can be. And the source encourages you to focus on genuinely sharing your own thoughts and experiences rather than trying to achieve some unrealistic level of perfection.
Back to that theme of communication over perfection.
Exactly. Finally, and perhaps one of the most impactful pieces of advice, is to practice speaking English on a daily basis.
Consistency.
Yes, even if it's just for a short period, say 5 minutes, and on any topic that comes to mind. Consistent practice over time is what truly builds both confidence and fluency.
So, as we sort of bring this deep dive to a close, we've explored how focusing on clear communication, using natural language, and adopting a confident approach can significantly enhance your speaking performance,
Mm-hmm.
not only in a test situation like IELTS, but also, frankly, in your everyday English conversations.
Absolutely. We looked at those useful phrasal verbs like speak up, think over, and open up, and how incorporating them can lead to more fluent and, well, more natural discussions.
And Mina's story was a great illustration.
Yeah, remember Mina's journey going from feeling overwhelmed to achieving that band 7.5 by prioritizing consistent practice and really striving for a natural conversational style.
We also highlighted those important collocations for describing speaking abilities, words like fluent speaker and speaking performance,
Right.
and really emphasized the value of aiming for a natural conversation
Right.
while confidently expressing your personal opinion.
And avoiding those common grammatical errors, like forgetting the A in a talkative person, and learning to start your sentences smoothly with phrases like, I'd say that. Those are key takeaways for making sure your communication is clear and effective.
Definitely. And finally, we touched on those crucial strategies for stress. Control the simple power of a smile, maybe.
It sounds simple, but yeah.
The importance of avoiding memorized responses, and the benefit of just focusing on sharing your thoughts authentically.
So, for you listening, to take this further, we'd like you to maybe consider this.
Mhm.
Think about a time when you felt you communicated an idea exceptionally well. What specific language did you use? What strategies did you employ, consciously or unconsciously? And how can you consciously apply those same techniques to your future conversations or perhaps in a speaking assessment?
That's a great reflective exercise. We'd love to hear about your experiences, so feel free to share them with us. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today.
Yes, thank you for joining us.